What's up, everybody? Welcome to a very special crossover episode for the very first time of Planet W and Universe of Weirdos, my two podcasts coming together for the very first time. I am your host, Jay Kraft, your last chance to evacuate planet Earth before it is recycled. So let's get off of planet Earth and let's get on to planet W, because we're going to be talking about women's basketball today, but we're doing it in a little bit of a unique way because NCAA March Madness is here, and I like to do these fun little specials on Universe of Weirdos where we talk about different holidays, different goings-ons, and have little specials every now and then. And I also host Planet W, a WNBA podcast where we like to talk women's basketball. So why not have a nice little crossover right here, middle of the week? They've announced the NCAA brackets, and I think it's time to get weird on the planet for women's basketball. And I don't know, I apologize if my fellow weirdos don't find this one all that exciting, because we're going to be talking about women's college basketball, but I promise you, please stick around because it's going to be interesting, because we're talking about the old bracket. You know what I'm talking about. Even if you're not a sports fan, you know what the bracket is, right? Every March Madness, every time it comes around, that little tournament bracket. Everyone loves it. They made you fill them out in elementary school. They have them at work. They have them all over the internet for fantasy different things. We've invented a word called bracketology because of stupid March Madness tournaments. So it's in the public consciousness. So I just feel like it's appropriate to talk about on here on Planet W and Universe of Weirdos, a very special crossover episode. Dan's not here with me. He is sick. He is currently laying in bed nursing a whatever the hell I was fighting off over the weekend, but I'm doing it a little different, right? I got the women's NCAA tournament bracket right here in front of me, and I've teased it on Planet W, so for all of you weirdos out there on Universe of Weirdos, let me explain it to you. Every year, I like to do a novelty bracket for Planet W. Last year I did which mascot would beat the other team's mascot, and it actually turned out to be quite boring because most teams were either tigers or some sort of a bird. So it was just kind of boring. It was a little bit annoying to go through that one. But here to set the stage for this one, I am going through the bracket, and they haven't had the first 4 games yet, so I am excluding those teams. So a couple of these teams, they get a bye into the second round. But this year, my novelty, I'm not doing mascots. I'm not doing anything like that. I am going to very simply do which city sucks. If your city sucks the most, or if your town or your state or wherever location your college is, if it sucks more than the other place, you move on to the next round. So I was going to do it which place was best, but it was like, that's kind of boring. Why don't we debate which places are worst? And then we'll go through that. So we got the whole bracket here. I'm going to go through basically game by game, and I will tell you, because I have done a lot of traveling over the years. I have been to pretty much every state except for Alaska and Hawaii and Rhode Island. I don't think that I've been to Rhode Island. Don't want to. Don't fucking want to, by the way. So, I've been to most of those. Is Rehoboth Beach? No, that's Delaware. I've been to a lot of the major cities and a lot of the major states. I've traveled around, just regular vacationing, just living life, doing stand-up in all of these different places. And I've even seen some of these states really shittier towns. So I'm excited to go through this one. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's see what we can go here. Let's see. We're going to go through the Fort Worth 1 division. First, let's see. Connecticut versus UTSA. That is San Antonio. I got to say Connecticut is probably worse place than San Antonio, so they're moving on. Iowa State versus Syracuse, New York. I've never been, but I've also heard good things about Syracuse from people that have lived there. I know people that have gone to college there. They said that they like it. So Iowa State, you are moving on because Iowa is boring. Maryland versus Murray State. Murray State is in Missouri, and Missouri is miserable. So Murray State is moving on. North Carolina versus Western Illinois. You know, we could debate this one. We could sit here and debate, but I'm going to boil it down to this. An entire state versus just the western part of Illinois. I'll say the western part of Illinois has got to be worse. So, North Carolina, you are unfortunately eliminated. Western Illinois is moving on. So, Notre Dame versus, you know what? I'm not even gonna, it's Fairfield. Fairfield, Connecticut, Notre Dame, you're moving on. Terre Haute blows. I've been there. Outside of the college town, it is meth central. It is hayseed rednecks galore. I don't know. Like I heard one guy refer to Indianapolis as the big city when I lived when I did stand up in Terre Haute. So yeah, Notre Dame moving on. Ohio State versus Howard. Howard is that Washington? Washington D.C. Let's go Ohio State. Ohio blows. Let's see, Illinois versus Colorado. I'll say Illinois because, you know, Colorado, they had the legal weed first and everything, and you get the nice mountains getting Rocky Mountain High. Illinois. Vanderbilt, which is in Nashville, versus High Point, which is in North Carolina. Let's go with High Point. Just because. Fuck it, High Point. South Carolina, you're going to be moving on automatically. Clemson, which is also in South Carolina, versus USC, which is Southern California, I'm going to guess. Clemson's got to move on, man. So sorry about that one. Let's see. Michigan State versus Colorado State. Yeah, I gotta say Colorado's still kind of dope. I've enjoyed Colorado every time I've visited. So Michigan, I've had some shitty times in Michigan, and also Detroit's kind of dirty, so Flint's kind of dirty. Michigan State moving on. Oklahoma versus Idaho. Wow, that's a good one. Which ones do you think is worse, Idaho or Oklahoma? I'm gonna say Oklahoma. I don't know why, because at least Idaho, they got the potato thing going, and potatoes are pretty fucking dope. You know, you can make fries out of them. You make baked potatoes, potato skins, potato wedges, some mashed potatoes. Fucking hash browns. Idaho's pretty dope, I guess. I mean, how dope is potato farming? Oklahoma, you're moving on. Congratulations. Washington versus South Dakota State. South Dakota State. Hello, you're moving on. TCU versus UC San Diego. TCU, you're gonna move on. I like San Diego, but also TCU is the Horned Frogs. So that one's always been funny to me. Go horned frogs. They're not just regular frogs. These frogs have horns. So be careful. Let's see. Georgia's going to move on because they're up against a first four team. Iowa versus FDU, which is in Jersey. I will say that Iowa is going to be moving on that one. Let's see. Moving over here to the other side of the bracket. UCLA versus California Baptist. Well, I mean, they're in the same place. So you got to have UCLA moving on in that one. Oklahoma State. We've already picked on Oklahoma and Princeton, New Jersey. Come on, Princeton, New Jersey's. I just think Guidos. I just think, you know, a bunch of dudes who wish they were in episodes of The Sopranos. Princeton's moving on, damn it. Mississippi versus Gonzaga. Gonzaga is in Spokane, Washington. So let's say Mississippi be moving on in that one. Minnesota versus Green Bay, Wisconsin. No, thank you. You guys wear cheese on your heads to show support for your fans or for your sports team. So no thanks. Anybody that has a cheese head, You're going to be moving on, apparently. So Baylor is in Texas. They're up against a first four team, so they will be moving on. Duke versus Charleston. So we got Durham, North Carolina versus West Virginia. In West Virginia, you're more associated with the rednecks. I know that Durham, North Carolina's got their fair share of rednecks. I understand this. Believe me, it's not lost on me. West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia, you got to be moving on. I'm sorry, you're a little bit more hayseedy, I guess. Texas Tech versus Villanova in Pennsylvania. I'd say Villanova can move on in that one. LSU versus Jacksonville. Oh God, Jacksonville. Jacksonville might be a front runner. I might be a favorite on this one because Jacksonville is one of the more rednecky cities I've ever been in my life. I've been there within the last 10 years, I'll just say that, and I've still seen mullets. Yeah, Jacksonville might be a favorite. Jacksonville's a dark horse. They're pulling for. They're definitely moving on. Texas gets a bye. Oregon versus Virginia Tech. Let's go. Let's put Oregon in there. Why not? They just sound boring. Oregon just sounds boring. I don't know why. James Madison is in Virginia versus Kentucky. You know what? Kentucky can be kind of dope. They got Louisville and stuff. So James Madison, you'll be moving on. West Virginia versus Miami, Ohio. I'm gonna move on West Virginia just so when we get to the next round we can have a battle of the Virginias. Alabama versus Rhode Island. You know what? Rhode Island, you got to move on because I slagged you off at the very beginning of this whole experimental podcast. Louisville versus Vermont. Vermont, you got to go. You're going to advance. Sorry. I have a lot of fun every time I visit Louisville. The one time I was in Vermont, snooze fest. Snooze fest. You can just go back to your hotel at 10 o'clock at night. Why not? Let's see, North Carolina State versus Tennessee. North Carolina State. I feel like North Carolina is getting picked on a lot, but you're going to be moving on. Michigan versus Holy Cross, which is in Massachusetts. I like Massachusetts quite a bit, so Michigan, you will be moving on. All right, second round here. The round of 32. What we got going on? Connecticut versus Iowa State. Iowa State, obviously. Murray State, which is in Missouri, versus Western Illinois. Murray State advancing. Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Obviously, Notre Dame moves on. Terre Haute blows, like we have already said. Illinois versus High Point. High Point is in North Carolina, so let's see. High Point gets to move on. South Carolina versus Clemson. That's the battle of the fucking South Carolinas. So let's just go with Clemson because South Carolina already had a bye. So fuck them. Clemson moves on. Michigan State versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma just seems a lot more boring than Michigan, so they will be moving on. South Dakota State versus TC. South Dakota State, come on, get out of here. Georgia versus Iowa. Iowa is definitely more boring than Georgia, so they will advance. UCLA versus Princeton. Princeton, New Jersey is definitely a worse place than Los Angeles, so they will be moving on. Mississippi versus Green Bay, Wisconsin. For me, that's a no-brainer. That is Green Bay all day long. Baylor versus Charleston, West Virginia. Charleston, congratulations. Villanova versus Jacksonville, no question. Jacksonville. Texas versus Oregon. Oregon is more boring than Texas. James Madison. So Virginia versus West Virginia, which is a worse state? I would have to say, just based on reputation, there is this little documentary that I have seen called The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia, and it is all about West Virginia hayseeds. So I'm going to have to say, just based on the drugginess alone, we're going to move West Virginia on. Rhode Island versus Vermont. Wow, that's a good one, huh? You know what? I've never been to Rhode Island, so you're moving on. Sorry, you got to move on because I've never found a reason to ever come to your state. North Carolina State versus Michigan. I will say North Carolina is a worse place than Michigan, so North Carolina State moving on. So we're to the round of 16 here. I hope you guys are got your bookies. I hope you have your DraftKings open and you're putting in your fucking things because this is a bracket that is for sure not going anywhere. So your round of 16 here: Iowa State versus Murray State. Missouri or Iowa? You know, I've been shitting on Iowa a lot, and they already have another team in there. Let's move Missouri, old Murray State from Missouri on to the round of 8, to the final 8. Murray State, the 12th seed, they will move on. Notre Dame versus High Point, which is North Carolina, and I have been shitting on North Carolina a lot, and I apologize for that. It seems unfair. Seems like I'm kind of going after the rednecks a little bit. I'm kind of punching a little bit below the belt on the South here, aren't I? So Terre Haute, you know what? That's my home state. Indiana is my home state, and I will say that Terre Haute, one of the worst cities in it. So I'm going to go ahead and move Notre Dame on to the round of 8 versus Murray State later. Let's see. Clemson, South Carolina versus Oklahoma. Let's go with the Okies, man. Let's move the Okies on to the round of 8 because you guys don't have anything else except for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So what else do you have? A bombing one time a long time ago? Somebody bombed some buildings. I mean, come on, man. Oklahoma, they need a victory. South Dakota State versus Iowa. What's more boring, huh? Well, you know what? What is I mean, at least Iowa had Caitlin Clark come out of it. What's South Dakota have? What does South Dakota have? I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, so they have to move on. They're going to the final 8. Congratulations, South Dakota State. Princeton versus Green Bay. You know, as much as I'd like to keep making fun of the cheeseheads and keep making fun of the old beer fuckers in Wisconsin, I just think about those Guido, like Jersey Shore wannabes, the fucking Snookies of the world, the Mike the Situations of the world. I'm gonna move Princeton, New Jersey, onto the round of 8. Charleston versus Jacksonville. Wow, that is a great battle of the rednecks. But like I said before, Jacksonville, one of the trashiest cities I've ever been to in my life. Jacksonville is moving on. And I say that with love. I had a great time when I was in Jacksonville, but let's just be completely real here. Cocaine, meth, lots of drinking, probably heroin being done in the parking lot of the place that I was at. It's just a really trashy place, the old Jacksonville. Oregon versus West Virginia. To me, that's a no-brainer. West Virginia gets to move on to the round of 8. Rhode Island versus North Carolina State. I am going to say that I am tired of making fun of North Carolina, and I'm going to move Rhode Island on because, you know, my logic stands. I've never visited you before, never felt you worthy of my presence. So Rhode Island, you get to go on to the round of 8. So here we are, the round of 8. Who's going to advance to the final 4 of the women's NCAA bracket of which city sucks the worst? We got Murray State, Missouri versus Terre Haute, Indiana's Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You know, I don't know why I've been shitting on Missouri so much. I just think it might just be coincidence and circumstance. It's a victim of matchups that Missouri was able to even make it to the final 8. Because I like Missouri. There's some great parts of Missouri. I like St. Louis quite a bit. People talk trash on it, say it's a dirty ass city. But I like St. Louis. So, you know, I'm tired of talking shit on Missouri. They don't even deserve to be in this round of 8. They were lucky to get here. You were just a victim of matchups and logic. So Notre Dame, you will be moving on to the Final 4 because Terre Haute, Indiana kind of blows. Let's see what we got over here on the Sacramento 4 bracket of the round of 8. We got Oklahoma or South Dakota. Man, that's a good one, huh? South Dakota or Oklahoma. I gotta say South Dakota because South Dakota, I can't think of what do they have. Is that where Mount Rushmore is? What else does South Dakota have, man? At least Oklahoma has an NBA championship that they just won last year. Now, Princeton or Jacksonville. So I'm going with my Jersey Shore trash stereotype. The fucking Bruce Springsteen worshiping fucking Sopranos cast member wannabe picture of Princeton, New Jersey that I have in my mind. I know that that's not everybody. I know that that's a very small percentage, but that's what I'm going to keep in mind when I compare you to Jacksonville, Florida, which is still one of the trashiest places I've ever been in my life. So it's like not even question. Jacksonville easily moving on to the Final Four in my mind of worst cities that are in this college bracket. Let's see. We also got West Virginia or Rhode Island. And the South has been getting beat up unnecessarily. I've been taking shots at the rednecks a little bit too much. So I'm just going to keep going with Rhode Island. I have never felt any reason to come to your state. I have never gotten any sort of comedy booking there. I don't even know anybody from there or that's ever been there. So Rhode Island, you get to move on to the Final Four, which brings us to our semifinals. We got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish of Terre Haute, Indiana versus South Dakota State. And I will say, yeah, I've been to, is it Bismarck? No, that's North Dakota. What the fuck is in South Dakota? I've definitely been there. I just can't think of why. But also, I got to think about all of the trashiness that I have met and interacted with when I have done all of my college shows, when I've decided to venture up north to do my South Bend, not Terre Haute. It's not Terre Haute. I've been confusing South Bend with Terre Haute this whole time. And guess what? South Bend's still really, really fucking trashy because that's where the South Bend Funny Bone is. Even though I've been confusing it with Indiana State, which is Terre Haute, South Bend is even worse. Holy shit, man. Dude, fucking South Bend would have been blazing through this thing had I had not been a dumbass and just had a complete brain fart through the first 20 minutes of this thing. Yeah, South Bend is way trashier than Terre Haute is. So, without question, Notre Dame's going to the finals. I could have put them through if I would have not thought that it was Terre Haute this whole damn time. Jeez. So, wow. Sorry about that one, guys. But yeah, South Bend is outside of the Notre Dame area, which I think I've maybe driven through the college campus. But no, South Bend, that's where they had the South Bend Funny Bone. They had that one club that was really just a really shitty, really rundown bar that they had a comedy night on the weekends sometimes that, oh, it was so bad. Wow, South Bend really does suck. So yeah, Notre Dame, you're easily, firmly just waltzed into the finals. You blindfolded yourself and just fucking foxtrotted through to the finals. Now that I know that it was South Bend and not Terre Haute, wow, I can't believe I was confusing those the whole time. But yeah, absolutely. South Bend, Indiana, blows. So let's see, over to the other semifinals. We got Jacksonville or Rhode Island. Jacksonville for sure, going to the finals. And then you got to think, which is the worst? We got Jacksonville versus Notre Dame. And now that I really have that re-energized second wind of, no, it's South Bend, not Terre Haute. South Bend, methy. Jacksonville also methy. But here's this. South Bend, big Irish community. I don't understand why the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are in South Bend, Indiana. That doesn't make any sense to me. Jacksonville, we expect rednecks. We expect Florida, trash, all of that. But hey, at least they got a beach. At least they have a nice party atmosphere. What's Indiana have? fucking 30-degree blizzards in the middle of March. It's ridiculous. It sucks. Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to be your women's NCAA national champions, using my logic of who has the worst city. And I think they probably would have won if I was going with Terre Haute as my original train of thought. But no, Terre Haute is the home of Indiana State University, not Notre Dame. Notre Dame is in South Bend, Indiana, which, yes, outside of that college campus, oh boy, South Bend is terrible. So yeah, that's not even second guess to me. But anyways, guys, I hope that you had a lot of fun. I'm sorry that Dan wasn't around for all of you Planet W fans. I'm sorry that Dan wasn't able to join us, but you know, he's sick. You know, we're all sick. We've all been sick. The weather's been way too up and down and just ridiculous lately. But hey, that's it for me. If you want, you can check me out on all of my socials. You can check Dan out on his socials too. Feverville317 on Instagram and TikTok. Now I am Universe of Weirdos and Planet WNBA on Instagram. I am JCraft247 on Twitter/X. You can email me if you would like any of your feedback and questions for either show, Universe of Weirdos or Planet W. You can email planetwnba@gmail.com. Let us know some of your NCAA bracket picks. Does this seem like a good Final Four to you? Notre Dame, South Dakota State, Jacksonville, and Rhode Island? How much money would I win if that one came true if I were to bet on that? That's a hell of a busted bracket already, I am sure. But hey, we have a Facebook group for Planet W if you would like. It is Planet W NBA, a Planet W fan group on Facebook. You can join us there and enjoy our Facebook conversations about women's basketball. And if you would like, go to your podcast platform, give us a nice rating, a positive review, a thumbs up, a 5 stars, a high five, a good on ya, a pat on the back, or a positive rating. I don't know. What can you do on your podcast platform to show love? 5 stars all the way around, baby. Thumbs up and share it with your friends. Tell them all, hey, there's this great podcast out there. It's called Planet W. Or Universe of Weirdos. I don't know what feed you're listening to this one on, but it's on both, because this is our wonderful crossover episode, and I hope you had a good time with it, because I had a good time doing it. I know it was kind of silly, just me kind of talking trash on various cities and basically the South for about a half an hour, but I apologize for that. I don't have any problem with the South. It's just, you know, a lot of rednecks, you know, kind of bother me, but, you know, I think they bother a lot of people. And you're the fair target, too, by the way. Everybody's allowed to laugh and make fun of rednecks without being told that they're being intolerant. You're the last bastion of comedy punching bags, is the old Southern redneck. Please don't take it away. We need victims in comedy. We need people to punch down on, so people can go, yeah, I get it. I think they're stupid too. I don't really think you're stupid. I love all of my Southern listeners. I love all of my listeners, and I will see all of you on the next go-round on either Planet W or Universe of Weirdos, wherever you're listening. And I am your last chance to evacuate planet Earth before it is recycled. See ya!